thanks for joining for this talk. I'm very used to doing a different kind of presentation, and usually I'm presenting for tours and boards, and usually I'm selling our product. So I'm kind of programmed to give that sort of presentation. And what I've learned in watching many of the talks here is it's a much different format than what I'm usually used to. And even my presentation, I compared. I looked at it and I thought, this feels a little too corporate-ish. So I'd like to step back from that if I could, and if you all bear with me, help me through this, because there's a good script for this. But I think one of the things that would be most valuable to this audience would be for me to kind of share my story of how I started the company, what the motivations were, some of the key learnings that I've had along the way, because they may be valuable to you. I've certainly bumped my head against multiple walls and worked very hard to get to where I'm at, about 10 years. And I've learned a few things along the way. Sometimes it takes quite a few mistakes to actually really learn something. So as we kind of go through this, I talked to Snail about this too. Maybe as I'm kind of 75% through the presentation, we can maybe jump right into the Q&A, because for one thing, our platform, the Hiptraveler platform, does a lot of stuff, and there's all these use cases for it. And I'm not sure which ones are the most applicable to you. So maybe as you ask questions, that can kind of lead the end of this presentation, okay? So in bearing with me, I thought it might be interesting to start with my original motivations. And it starts all the way back in my family. My father was an artist. My mother was a mathematician from Scotland and from Germany. And my dad was entrepreneurial, but he didn't have any business sense. And so he was, in many ways, a failed entrepreneur. And I sort of grew up with an entrepreneurial spirit, wanting to do something on my own, but I was always very cautious, and I was very conservative. So I went down sort of a conservative path. Did college, got a good job out of college in a cubicle that I hated. I remember there was a beautiful view out the window right outside of my cubicle, but you couldn't see it because I had a cubicle. And I remember, thinking I've got to focus on doing something practical and conservative rather than jumping out there and being an entrepreneur. But I've spent years and years really wanting to be an entrepreneur and do something. So the cautious path that I took, and as I was listening to Jan's presentation, if I could roll the clock back, I would have jumped in feet first right then, when I was 20 years old, before I had a family, before I had responsibilities. Time to be able to go and fail if need be, and then learn from those mistakes. So that's the first little bit of advice I think I would give there. Also, another thing that Jan talked about was, and I fell into this trap, where when I first became an entrepreneur, I basically recreated the job that I had in corporate America. And so, lo and behold, I wanted this freedom, this independence, and I found myself kind of doing exactly the same thing that I was doing prior. And I think in hindsight, that was also a bit of a mistake, right? So maybe highlighting mistakes is a good way to go, I'm not sure, but it's led to where we are today, and so that ends up being a very good thing, I'm sure. And we can get into any questions that you would have or advice that I can give on things like raising money, the use of automation tools, which we are a heavy AI user and have been for years now. It's actually part of our application. I've been absolutely astounded by how powerful the technology is today and the amount or the level of productivity that it's producing in my still very small team. So I've immersed myself in that a bit, and if that's an area that you'd like to talk about, I'd be happy to jump into that as well. So with that, the original motivation behind Hiptraveler was, I was reading a travel blog, and it was about this place, the Perhentian Islands up in Malaysia. And this travel blog, the author was an exceptional photographer, took pictures like this. Has anyone been here, by the way? Anyone in the room? One? Okay. Beautiful, right? I stumbled upon this and I thought, I've never seen this place. What is this? I'd always had a passion for travel and technology. And I read this blog article and I got inspired, and then I realized the author hadn't given me any information about how to actually really get there. And it's a bit complicated, right? There's a ferry that's running on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you need the details if you want to go to this place, which I recommend. And so that was my light bulb moment, was why isn't travel content that's inspirational also actionable? I was a person who would screenshot things, bookmark things. I had spreadsheets of ideas for future trips, and I would lose all this stuff. I wanted to be able to read something, get inspired, or view a video, get inspired, and then save the itinerary from that trip so I could actually use it for the future. So that was kind of the genesis, if you will, of our application. The technology is called Blog Creator. And so this has use cases for content creators as well. So people that are monetizing their travels around the world, of course, professional bloggers. What I've found in the campaigns we've done and the content that we've produced, many times it's the micro influencer that actually has more influence than the big influencer, the one with millions of followers. Their followers may not listen to their recommendation to go to the Virgin Islands, whereas somebody that has 1,000 or 2,000 followers even, that's making the recommendation, you have a closer relationship with them. So I think there is this revenue potential with that part of our application that fits for the nomad community, okay? And I'll go into more detail on that. Hiptraveler continued developing software, and we ended up building an automatic trip planner. And the automatic trip planner ran on our own algorithm. You enter in your travel style, activities you're interested in, type of experience you want to have, it builds an automatic itinerary for you. So 5 years ago, we were the leader in that space for tourism boards. So our clients are the Bahamas, Dominican Republic, Visit Britain, Jordan, Baja, Mexico, quite a few places. The world has changed with AI, because now that ability to create that algorithm, which we've created on our own, is in the hands of, it's been democratized. It has a different sort of ability with AI to be able to make sure that it's not hallucinating, which is a problem with an itinerary. If an AI creates a restaurant that doesn't exist and it sends you there, you're not going to be very happy. So Hiptraveler's current application does sort of both. We're using AI for ideas and maybe off the beaten path sort of stuff. And then we're validating that data to make sure that it's a real restaurant, that you can really go there. So our approach there is a little bit different. And we have just continued down that path, but we had a client in Baja, Mexico, that said, okay, we've got this blog creator technology. It would be great for one of our influencer campaigns. If we could actually measure the ROI on these campaigns. And so we did, reluctantly. We way undercharged for it, I remember. It was like $10,000 I think we charged, and we took 10 influencers. 2 of the influencers' videos went viral. One had 30 million views, one had 2.5 million comments. So the destination got the greatest deal like in the whole world with our platform. But it proved kind of early on that we could do this and we could be successful at it. We produce very authentic storytelling type content with our campaigns, and then we're actually showing also now the ROI to the tourism boards. So that's kind of the genesis of the product. But the ways that it could potentially touch this group are, as I thought through nomad opportunities. One would be if you're producing content, even on a small level. As I mentioned, the micro-influencers many times are way more influential. We can convert that content into bookable itineraries. So we have an algorithm that'll scan your text and build the itinerary, and then give you a button that is, here's my itinerary from this story that I've just told. We also have, as I mentioned, the influencer type campaigns or content creator campaigns. Holger convinced me that here in Bansko, this would be a great place to sort of try this out. So we did a little bit of a competition where we had people apply, and next week we're doing an amazing itinerary here in Bansko with some content creators. And so that's another opportunity, and we're going to do one of those per quarter And we're picking just really interesting destinations around the world to do this. We're looking at Ireland, we're looking at Yucatan in Mexico, we're talking about Thailand. I'd like to go to the Philippines, Jen. So I think Philippines would be an excellent place to do it as well. But if you apply to be a creator on one of these, it's all expense paid. We pay also while you're there, so everything is covered. And then we're going to produce hopefully really beautiful content. The format for these, by the way, is a lightly packed schedule. So many of these press trips or fan trips are just one thing after the next thing, after the next thing, after the next thing. It's not very enjoyable for the content creators to do some sort of activity and then be forced to pose and say, I love this, you know, and they've been doing it for an hour. It's not authentic, it's not real. So our format is that it's a loose schedule, and our content creators can actually design their itinerary as well. They can be a part of it. And then the third thing, and this one came to me, I don't know if this was a jet lag moment or something. I am from the West Coast in the US. I woke up at 2:30 in the morning 2 nights ago, and within our platform, we have a social network as well. So in the Hiptraveler platform, there's messaging, following, liking, basically everything except for comment. I wanted to keep all political discussions off the platform, but we have a social network there. And so the idea came to me, and you can tell me whether this is a good idea or not, to build a dedicated community within our platform that's already built for the nomad community. And since I've been here at the event, I've been learning a lot about, you know, what's important to you. And it's much different than your average traveler, right? You're interested in the homeschooling pods, and you're interested in longer term living that you may not find on Airbnb, let's say. So I think it might be an opportunity, and I'm looking to maybe co-create that with you. We're not starting from scratch. We already have the platform. It would just be taking sort of your Christmas wish list of what you would like to see, and then we'll figure out if we can build it or not for you. It's sort of the third thing. So monetizing your stories, how does this work? We built this algorithm that basically scans text, right? And it does, in technical terms, it's doing pattern matching to a very large database of hotels, tours, restaurants, everything that's in a destination. So we just released, actually it hasn't been released to the public yet, but very soon, where it's 2 lines of code that you put on your website, if you have a website, and it'll automatically scan everything that's on your site and monetize each element of that. There's a big differentiator for us here. If you're familiar with some of the affiliate type deals out there, like Viator or Gator Guide, the amount they pay in commissions is actually fairly small, typically. You know, maybe 6% for a hotel booking, let's say. Hiptraveler is actually a booking engine. So I like to say we're the world's smallest booking engine, right? I mean, all the other booking engines, the Expedias and the Trivagos and what have you, are thousands of employees. We're 7. So we don't have a lot of overhead. And I'm not looking at the booking revenue as this like main driver of revenue for us. I'm looking at it more, how can I get people involved in a platform and then pay them the most money that they've ever seen for something like this. So the example is when you're a booking engine, you're buying the inventory at between 10 and 40% less than the retail cost. So on some of these, I'll have 40% margin on a hotel, for example. We're giving the content creator 75% of that, right? So whereas they made maybe $6 on a booking, they might make 200, right? And that's going to be, I think, a game changer in the content creator community. And we can maintain that, you know, with the tools that exist today. A lot of what Jen was talking about also, we have the ability to do that with less headcount, and we can afford to give that margin. So it's kind of an interesting approach. If you're into content creating, this might be a fit for you, or if you're considering it for the future, it might be a fit as well. Okay, the collectivos. So we're planning on 4, all right? We've done really good content campaigns in the past. In our most recent one, we took on Best Destination Video Award at the Travel Media in London last year. Kash Bhattacharya, the budget traveler, was our lead blogger, and he produced some absolutely just stunning, beautiful, beautiful content. I'm hoping to do that. Side note here real quick, I just lost my videographer for next week's campaign. So if any of you happen to be videographers, please talk to me. Because the video ends up being, in a lot of ways, the most important part of each one of these campaigns. It's what lasts, right? When all the social media is gone and what have you, being able to go back and see the video and having it be cinematic and beautiful and portray the destination well, I think it's one of the things that motivates me the most, actually. So keep that in mind if you are a creative videographer and you'd like to get involved, you can definitely join us, okay? Okay, co-create with me. So as I mentioned, this is purely this is total unconference here, okay? Not scripted, not planned, 2:30 in the morning. It may, the idea may suck, all right? I would expect you to maybe tell me this, but I know that when you focus on a certain segment and you start listening to them, there's always more that you can discover if you're really interested, you know? The example I'll give is this. The application that we're releasing in September, I had an experience where I did one of our campaigns. I hit the ground in Mexico. I have a US-based service called Verizon. It's supposed to cover me in Mexico and also Canada and US. I hit the ground, I'm coordinating 20 people. I have videographers, I have content creators, I have a tourism board, I have transportation for all of them. I'm doing event planning, which I'm horrible at, and anyone that does that and is good at it, I kudos to you, because I think it's a very hard thing to do. But I had no connectivity. And so I'm on customer service with Verizon, and they can't help me because when you're international, you get their tier 2 service, which is one person reading an FAQ. And so I was with a blogger, they're called the Planet D, and they're from Canada. And his name's Dave, and he said, dude, get this eSIM service. You know, you just hit the button and you're gonna have connectivity. And so I did. I won't mention the name of that one. But it saved my ass. You know, it's the only way I can describe it, right? I have all these people I'm coordinating, and I realized at that point, it's the travel hacks, you know, and there's one in every destination. You know, there's a certain car rental company you want to go with in Kosovo, you know, and they're the best. And there's a certain type of insurance you want to have, and there's a certain type of eSIM you want to use. So I think there's a really interesting opportunity here to sort of take what we already have and then position it perfectly for the nomad community with their wish list. So